Well, if you have a high pressure job and one of your favorite ways to feel better and release tension is to go home at the end of the day and hit the fridge, have a snack, get some chips, have a glass of wine, whatever it might be, this episode is for you. Today, we're going to be talking about binge eating and how it affects high performing professionals. And I can relate to this. Back in my day when I was a news anchor on CNBC Asia, I was hosting a morning show called Squawk Box. I was getting up every morning at 3 a.m., going in on air for 3 hours, doing interview after interview. And when I would get home at the end of the day, I would love to have a family size Cadbury's chocolate bar. That was one of my favorite go-to treats. And I used to think, I deserve it. I work hard. But it got in the way, to be honest, of my fitness goals, my weight goals, a lot of pressure, of course, as a news anchor. When you're sitting there with a camera on you every day, you have this self-imposed pressure because you see yourself all the time being fed back in interviews. You see yourself on a monitor. And I was caught in a constant loop. I would be wanting to hit my fitness goals, my workout goals, and my weight goals. And then I would go home and I would eat because I thought I deserved it. And it was binge eating for sure. And it was a tough thing. It was a difficult thing to get a handle on. So today's episode, if you do the same thing, this episode is absolutely going to be for you. So our guest today on this edition of Being Human is Annelise Lai. Annelise is a clinical psychologist. She's also my friend. We used to work together. And she is the founder of the Soma Psychology Clinic in Singapore. She helps high achievers achieve emotional resilience and sustainable peak performance. Those two things are really interrelated, aren't they, Annelise? Thank you. It's so great to see you there.
Thank you, Lisa. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. So first of all, give us a sense, when a client comes into your office, how do you know it's binge eating and how is it different from a full-blown eating disorder?
Right. When we talk about binge eating, there are actually two types of binge eating. What you are sharing earlier, just reaching for that chocolate bar. And if we do that once in a while, sometimes I do that too. It's so comforting to have that sweet and gooey texture in your mouth. So I think many people can relate to that, standing in front of your fridge or your pantry and reaching out for some comforting food. But not every binge eating episode is a clinical objective binge eating episode. So there are subjective binge eating, like what we described earlier, where we felt like we have overate and then we overeaten. And then there are also binge eating where you feel like you're eating when you're not hungry and you're going really fast, eating large amount of food and in a short amount of time, usually within 1-2 hours, and you are going beyond your usual fullness level, and you might feel uncomfortable, unpleasant, you're bloating. Some people might even be in pain and they still can't stop. There's this element of out of control when they're eating, and they usually eat alone because there's this shame around eating so much. And if we do that at least once a week and for over 3 months, that's when we diagnose someone with binge eating disorder.
I see. Okay, so how common is this? How often do you see it among the high performers who come into your clinic?
It's actually quite common, not just the binge eating, but also drinking, because that's the fastest way for you to numb your feelings. So through human evolution, it's a signal of comfort and safety. So reaching out for comforting food, especially your childhood snacks, what your mom used to serve you, that also can feel very comforting.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So if you have a stressful job, maybe you're living overseas, you come back and you binge on those childhood favorites that brought you so much comfort when you were a little boy or a little girl.
Yes, I have client from Australia telling me that they used to eat a lot of Tim Tams. They stock that
Who
in the
doesn't love Tim Tams?
Yeah. So that's their comfort food.
Yeah.
Mm.
I absolutely relate to that. I've eaten more than a full box of Tim Tams in one sitting myself.
Mm.
So this is part of a high functioning trap.
Mm.
Tell us
Yes.
about that.
So when we see these clients on the outside, they are thriving, right? They're professionals, they are um, leaders of huge companies or groups. So on the outside, they are high functioning. You would call that, and everyone would agree with you. But being high functioning doesn't always mean having good mental health. Having high achievement doesn't equals to good mental health. So we often assume that just because they are hitting their KPIs and they're leading teams, they
Mm.
must be okay. And they don't think that they could see a psychologist because they don't think that they're not doing well themselves, because I'm actually in control of so many things in my life. How can I
Mm.
not be in control of my feelings and my eating? Just doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of resistance to accept that they're not doing okay. But I
Mm.
know that as a high functioning individuals, a lot of time that high achieving tendency is often a coping mechanism, a survival strategy, rather than a sign of good mental health.
So it's connected. Is it fair to say then that it is connected to high pressure jobs? It can be.
Yeah. By day, you are so decisive, in control. And some of my clients, they tell me, everyone think I'm so calm. When there's a crisis at work, I'm always the one they go to. By night, they just find themselves standing in front of the pantry, reaching out for food. And maybe throughout the day, they're already planning, what can I do at night? What can
Mm.
I eat at night? What can I buy on my way home for that comfort? So zoning out while eating, it's it's a relief that they are looking for. That's how they can manage all the stress during the day. It's not really a lack of willpower. It's not that they are weak.
Mm.
It's a nervous system regulation that is so instinctive for all of us.
Tell us a little bit about that, because there is a it doesn't mean that they're weak. I think there's a bit of a shame attached with it overall, and they keep thinking, "Oh, I'm so weak. I can't believe I did that." As you revisit what you ate the day before, there's a physiological component to all of this as well. It's not just about willpower.
Yes, you can't win nature. You can't try to control nature. That's the biological reaction. If you stress yourself too much and there's no way you could soothe yourself, and you're trying to ignore all of that, that's just your body trying to soothe itself, looking
Mm.
for dopamine hit, looking for quick relief. That has been associated with comfort and safety, like what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, let's go into the psychological side of it as well. So for a lot of high performing, high functioning clients, we both see them in our individual practices. Your job is your identity, is a huge part of who you are. And that you were telling me earlier is linked, or it can be linked to binge eating. Talk about that.
Yes. When that is your only identity, to be fair, as an adult, work identity is our biggest identity. But if that's the only thing you have, there's nothing else outside of work for you, then everything relies on work going well. And we know that's not realistic for work to be always going well. No, that you're always performing at your best and you're always doing your best. So when there's a sign of threat, even not a failure yet, you panic. You feel like you're
Mm.
going to lose yourself in the process. You might lose recognition, acceptance. You might feel like you're not worthy as a person, even. So if there's so much stress around keeping that identity and being perfect, then there's a lot of room for shame, anxiety, and this low self-worth, feeling defeated and feeling small, feeling like an imposter sometimes. When these
Mm,
feelings get so overwhelming, there's no other ways for you to cope with them. Then you rely on this binge eating, emotional eating as a coping
mm,
fix.
yeah,
So it's a
yeah.
loop, like what you talk about. Yeah. You feel like you have to keep doing. If you don't, then you are left to sit with the stillness, the emptiness, and
Mm,
you need something to block that feeling because it's so uncomfortable. Many people
yeah.
think when they're
Sitting
not,
with stillness is a difficult one, isn't it? If you're going hard all day, you're working, you're performing, you're hitting your KPIs, and then you come home and it's just you and your thoughts. It's very easy to take something like food or alcohol to help cope with that, to help get you through until you can get back to work.
yes, yes. So actually, they're both coping mechanism: overworking, overachieving, and eating. So when you are overworking, it kind of make you switch off this noise and these thoughts in your head, right? And when you're overworking, overachieving, you feel valued, you feel important. And once that stops, you don't know who you are. A lot of people feel like they just can't switch off the thoughts about work, even when they're home.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing to hear it being tied so clearly to high stress jobs. I mean, this is it actually is very comforting for a lot of people, I think, to realize that it's not them. They're not defective in some way. They're not weak.
Definitely
It's
not.
yeah. It's related to their high pressure job and the fact that they're flat out and so much of their identity is tied up in that role. So let's talk a little bit about the root causes. You've mentioned some of the childhood favorite dishes being a common thing for people to turn to when they're stressed, and I'm guessing that a lot of this is linked to childhood and experiences in childhood.
Yes. When I work with my clients, I don't just um, help them with the symptoms because a lot of people are looking for quick fix already. They have been doing that at home. So when they come here and if they ask me to fix their binge eating, fix their eating patterns, I always tell them that that would only be a small part of our work together. We will look at the origins and the roots of why you have to use that as a coping. Why is that a default coping for you? So a lot of them, when they do this work with me and, discover their inner world, a lot of them actually have this common experience of being parentified as a child.
Mm. Okay,
So
so I'm going to get you to explain parentified. So, as I'm a
yeah,
counselor, you're a psychologist. We both understand what parentification of children mean. Can you explain it for our viewers, Annelise?
of course. So being parentified means being responsible for tasks, things at home that are beyond your age appropriateness. So if you're 5 years old and you're tasked to work for your family, to bring food on the table, that is not age appropriate for you. But if you're 17 and you have to, you know, maybe help cook some meals and maybe take care of your siblings, that would still be more
Mm,
age appropriate. If you are 20 and you're expected to work part time, that's still age appropriate and
mm,
that's not parentified. And they're
yeah.
instrumental parentification and emotional parentification when you're expected to show up as an adult by doing house chores when you are supposed to be taken care of, like 5 years old, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah.
So very common when a parent is emotionally incapable of providing the parenting that's required. So the kids, sometimes the eldest sibling will step up and say, okay, I've got this. I'll manage your emotions and my emotions, and I'll do everything that's required in this house.
Yes. So that would be the emotional parentification, where parents themselves are going through a lot, and it may not be intentional as well. Sometimes it's a financial crisis in a family, health crisis in a family, or, marital issue between parents. And the child feels like they have to step up to comfort and soothe the adult's emotion.
Yeah.
And they learn that their needs are not important. They need to learn to sacrifice their needs or disconnect from their needs to make sure that everything at home is stable. So if you have that early life experiences, then you're going to learn that I need to contribute to be valued. I need to be sacrificing myself and looking out for others' need to be important, to be accepted.
Yeah. And they push down their needs as well as part of this whole equation. So they're taking care of everyone else. They're deriving their sense of value from the external world, which is their job. And then they don't expect for their emotional needs to be met. So they push them down. And then food and binging comes in to
Yeah.
provide a little bit of relief.
Yes. Another point about having this experience is that you don't get to learn how to regulate emotions because it's often really chaotic in a home environment, or maybe your needs are neglected. So nobody knows you have needs. So you don't get that exposure, that experience of being soothed. And we all need that to learn regulation. We need co-regulation. We need our parents calm, to be able to be calm ourselves. So without that, it would be really hard for you to develop skills to sit with difficult feelings. And that's when eating, drinking become tempting.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. When you stand back and look at it, you realize we all sort of follow the same patterns. We're all human. We're all vulnerable. No one has a perfect childhood. And very often parents do the best that they can.
Yeah.
But we're all human, and it's easy to fall into this trap. So let's talk about what to do about it. You have 3 techniques that you use to help your clients get a handle on this issue. Can you walk them through? So the first one, uncoupling worth from output.
Yes. So they're so used to tying their worth and their output together, right? How much I can do, how much hours do I clock in each week, and I feel good about myself. I feel worthy. So I usually help them to identify one area in their life outside of work that they
Mm.
can do without any expectation, without any pressure to achieve, with zero ROI. So pure enjoyment and just pure exploring whatever that is. So, for example, cooking, you can just cook whatever you want without having to follow the recipe to the exact, you know, and just enjoy whatever taste you create. Some people, they do exercising, like swimming, biking, and we do that without tracking,
Mm.
clocking, checking, how many steps, how
It
quick am
sounds so
I?
difficult. I have to count my steps.
I'm gonna do better tomorrow. I have to be faster tomorrow. So we
Yeah.
try to pick something that you're committed in trying not to do that.
Mm.
Allow
Wow.
yourself the flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
that's so difficult for high achieving types because they need to count their steps and they feel like they need to
yeah.
boost their weekly Fitbit total, and
Yes.
everything is ROI and performance related. So it's really interesting.
Sometimes it's unconscious. They just do it. They don't
Mm.
even know it. It's a habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, tell me about the curiosity break. This is technique number 2 for getting a handle on eating patterns. The
Yes.
curiosity break. What does that mean?
So now we understand that emotional eating and binge eating can be a coping. They used to help you to soothe your feelings when you didn't have anything else. So understand when you observe that pattern coming up, what are you actually trying to cope with? What is difficult to sit with if you don't do this? What do you have to endure if you don't reach out for that Tim Tam,
Mm,
for example? So when you notice yourself having this urge, sometimes it could be overworking. I have clients who told me they're home, they're trying to relax because we have talked about this. They turn on the TV, 5 minutes in, they are typing on their laptop.
mm,
They just can't help it. They're replying email, checking email, and then trying to peek on what's going on the TV at the same time, thinking they could multitask. So, not allowing themselves to sit with the stillness and not being productive, that is about the first technique, the first point we talk about. Learning how to pick one thing to sit with
mm,
without working and tracking your achievement. So when you notice that you're doing that, that's the second point. Being curious about, what would happen if I just watch TV without replying this email? Any
mm,
thoughts that come? Some of them might tell me, I might not able to finish this. That's more anxious kind of thought process. Some people might tell me, but what if they didn't get this reply and they will get it after this weekend and they think that I'm not capable. They think that I'm not doing well at my job. They don't think that I take this
mm,
job seriously. So you see the thought pattern is about judgment, is about something else, about how people view them. And some people might have a different reaction. If I don't do this, I just feel so guilty. I'm not supposed to be watching TV. I could be doing something productive. I could be learning something. So it's about productivity guilt. So be curious about what is the underlying maybe driver.
mm.
You have to reach out for this.
So become an impartial third party observer. So you step outside yourself, you stand back and you say, all right, what's going on here? And you observe.
Yes, yes. Some people can even, when they get better at this, they can even tell me they feel it in their body. That I
Mm.
just feel so restless, that the sofa doesn't feel very comfortable. But it should be, you know. I feel like I need to be doing something. There's a restlessness.
And a boredom, I guess, as well, because usually you're distracting yourself with food, with alcohol, with Netflix,
Yeah,
with YouTube.
yeah. Boredom
Yeah.
is also one emotion, emptiness as well, behind a
Mm.
lot of binging, emotional eating episode. Doesn't always have to be something big
Yeah.
and dramatic. Yeah.
Okay, so technique number 3 for dealing with binge eating is reparenting, the foundation of all or most therapeutic settings. Give us your perspective on that when it comes to high performers.
Right. So, just a disclaimer, this step would be able to help you, or maybe this step will only be helpful if you're able to do step number 1 and number 2. So,
Mm,
it requires certain level of awareness first before you can practice reparenting. So, clients are able to do that usually after being in therapy for a while. So, they know the concept of inner child, they understand and they are able to connect with their inner child. They know the needs of their inner child. For example, the inner child is really afraid of failing, and maybe in another example, very afraid of being seen as not good enough. So
mm,
if you're able to identify that and the unmet need behind this. So if you're afraid of being seen as not capable at work, is it about acceptance? Is it about recognition? So if you're able to identify the unmet needs, you could provide that for yourself as a parent. So you are an
Mm.
adult now, you could be the parent for your inner child, even though you didn't get this from your childhood. So this is the process of reparenting that we practice in therapy. Some people who didn't have this at all in their life, they may not be able to do reparenting at all if there's no safe adult, healthy adult in their life.
Which
So
is where the
then,
therapist comes in, usually, to provide that role.
yes. So in the beginning, I might do that. I might be the one sharing what they could say, coaching them, the healthy adult messages, how they can sound like, and then they take over. They might start picking up certain statements they could relate to, and
Mhm.
they start using them on themselves. So oftentimes, it's about accurately identifying the unmet needs for the message to be the most impactful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Listening to these 3 steps, Annelise, so just to make sure that it's crystal clear for our viewers. So 3 steps involved in recalibrating the way you approach food. 1 is uncoupling your worth from your output, and it sounds like these are linear. You do them in order. So the first one is to just do something purely for
Mm,
enjoyment. The second
mm,
one is to sort of stand back and observe yourself and think, "Oh,
mm,
what's going on here?" So you're a
mm.
third person standing outside of
Yeah.
yourself and the food, I guess. And the
Yes.
final one is reparenting. When you're open, when you're aware enough of what's going on, then you start challenging some of the contributing underlying causes to why this is taking place. Did I get that right?
Yes. That's perfect. So you need to know what you need first before you know what to offer, right?
Mm,
So for example, before reaching out for that team tam, if you're able to be curious about what's going on, my clients
mm.
told me I just really need a hug right now. And
Oh,
yes, it's about having a bad day and then, not having someone to talk to. The higher you are on the hierarchy, the more lonely you get,
mm,
you know? So they just really needed someone who can sit with them and hug them. So on the reparenting step, they just decided to call a good friend and talk about it. Instead of sitting in the kitchen, they move to the couch, call someone, you know, hug the pillow, change into comfortable pajamas, you know. That is also a way to comfort and soothe yourself without putting
mm,
food in your mouth.
mm,
A hot shower.
mm. So
Yeah.
things that feel good that are different, develop different neural pathways for soothing yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Final words of advice. This has been so helpful, Annalise. What are your final thoughts or words of advice that you'd like to leave our viewers
Mhm.
with? Because most of them have pretty stressful jobs.
Yeah. If you recognize yourself in this episode, I just want to remind you that it's not your fault. If you're the leader who carries the weight of the company all day and then find the need to numb yourself and numb the weight of your emotions at night, how can you not do that? Having a stressful job for a long period of time without anything to release. Anyone would do that. So there's no shame in going through that cycle. We need to know that this is a coping, not a failure.
Mm,
This coping mechanism serve a purpose and it used to be adaptive. They help you survive. Otherwise, how can you be in this role for so long? So they help you succeed, help you survive. But the second point is these are outdated now. You don't actually need them anymore. You have already earned your place. But, you know, keep doing this will actually create new problems and new shame that requires you to have to develop another coping to fix this. So that could look like restriction,
mm,
having the pressure to lose all this weight and having to deal with this shame that comes from overeating. So I just want to remind everyone that you are allowed to enjoy your life. You're allowed to rest, and your worth is inherent. It has nothing to do with how good you are at work or how much you're bringing in to the company. A $50 will always be a $50, even if it's crumpled, crushed, or step on. It doesn't change its inherent value.
Mm.
So you are the $50. All of us are. Yeah.
You
So
don't
a
have to
mistake.
earn your value. Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you, Annelise, so much.
No problem.
So insightful, and we really appreciate your wisdom in all of this because it is something that affects a lot of people. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's so nice to get to talk about this.
Something more professionals need to be aware of. It's not them. It's a very normal part of being a human being in a high pressure role. Annelise, thank you so much. That was Annelise Lai. She is founder of the Soma Psychology Clinic in Singapore. And if you want to reach out to her, her details will be in the description.